Most men believe women fall in love because of what a man does for them. The attention, the effort, the consistency. That belief is the reason most men fail, because women don't fall in love when they feel impressed. They fall in love when they feel pulled, not chased, not convinced. Pulled. There's a moment every woman experiences, often without realizing it, where her emotions stop following logic and start orbiting a man who doesn't try to control the outcome. A man who isn't anxious to be chosen. A man who doesn't need her approval to feel whole. A man whose calm presence creates gravity. That's not confidence. That's not charm. That's Stoic structure. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to make women fall in love, and you start becoming the kind of man love falls into. Today, I'm going to break down exactly how women fall in love. Not through romance, not through effort, but through psychological alignment and emotional contrast, explained through Stoic principles most men never apply. If you've ever wondered why some men don't chase yet, women grow attached anyway, this video will answer that question. And once you see it, you won't unsee it. There is a lie most men are taught very early in life. It sounds noble. It sounds logical. And it quietly ruins their chances with women. The lie is this: women fall in love when you give enough. Enough attention, enough effort, enough reassurance, enough presence. So, men give, and give, and give. They show up early. They reply fast. They listen deeply. They explain themselves. They sacrifice time, sleep, priorities, and sometimes dignity. And when it doesn't work, they're confused because they did everything right. But attraction doesn't respond to morality. It responds to psychology. Women don't fall in love because a man tries hard. They fall in love when something inside them moves without permission. And that never comes from effort alone. Here's what most men don't understand. Effort creates appreciation. Appreciation creates comfort. And comfort, when it arrives too early, kills desire. This doesn't mean women are cruel. It means the nervous system works the same way in everyone. What's predictable fades. What's always available loses charge. What's trying to be chosen feels weak. Love doesn't grow in safety alone. It grows in tension balanced by trust. And this is where Stoicism enters the conversation. Stoicism doesn't teach detachment from people. It teaches detachment from outcomes. A Stoic man is not cold. He's centered. He doesn't need to be chosen to feel complete. He doesn't need validation to feel valuable. He doesn't need constant connection to feel secure. And paradoxically, that's exactly what creates attraction. Because women don't fall in love with men who are trying to be loved. They fall in love with men who are already whole. Let's slow this down. When a man's emotional stability depends on a woman's response, his behavior changes. He becomes reactive. He reads into silence. He explains when not asked. He overcorrects small shifts. Even when he's polite, his energy leaks. And women feel energy before they analyze behavior. They feel the imbalance. Not consciously, Viscerally, something feels off, not because he's bad, but because he's leaning. Now contrast that with a man who is grounded. He enjoys her presence, but he doesn't orbit it. He listens, but he doesn't overinvest. He shows interest, but he doesn't abandon himself to keep it. He is present without being needy, engaged without being dependent. That difference is everything. Stoicism teaches one brutal truth most men resist. You cannot control how someone feels about you. The moment you accept that, you stop performing. And the moment you stop performing, attraction has room to grow. Women don't fall in love when they feel managed. They fall in love when they feel free to move emotionally. A man who tries to secure love through effort creates pressure. A man who allows love to emerge through presence creates space. And space is where desire breathes. Think about this. If love could be earned through effort alone, the most exhausted men would be the most desired. They're not. If attention created attachment, women would fall for every man who texts back fast. They don't. Attraction doesn't follow fairness. It follows emotional contrast. Stoicism understands this intuitively. A Stoic man is not chasing emotion. He's governing himself. He is not trying to make something happen. He's making sure he doesn't lose his structure while it unfolds. That's why women fall in love around him. Not because of him trying to pull them in. Here's the uncomfortable part. Many men think they want love. What they actually want is certainty. They want reassurance. They want guarantees. They want to know where they stand. But certainty is not romantic. It's administrative. Love needs uncertainty to exist. Not chaos, not drama, but uncontrolled emotional movement. And only a man who is internally steady can allow uncertainty without panicking. That steadiness is magnetic, because it signals something rare. A man who is not trying to be completed. A man who is not afraid to lose. A man who doesn't negotiate his self-worth. This is why women don't fall in love with words. They fall in love with how they feel around your stillness. Your calm regulates their nervous system. Your boundaries create trust. Your independence creates polarity. And none of that can be faked. Stoicism doesn't say, be distant. It says, be rooted. It doesn't say, care less. It says, need less. Because the man who needs less is the man who gives love freely, not desperately. And that's the man women fall in love with, without fully understanding why. In the next chapter, we're going to break down the Stoic frame itself. Not theory, not quotes, but the internal structure that makes a man emotionally solid enough that attraction stops being something he chases and starts being something that forms naturally around him. Before a woman falls in love, something else happens first. She senses structure, not rules, not control, not dominance. Structure. The Stoic frame is not about how you treat her. It's about how you hold yourself when nothing is required. Most men misunderstand this. They think attraction comes from action, from saying the right thing, from timing texts, from reading signals. A Stoic man operates differently. He doesn't manage impressions. He manages himself. And that inner management changes how every interaction feels around him. The Stoic frame begins with one non-negotiable truth. Your emotional center does not live outside of you. It doesn't rise when she's warm. It doesn't collapse when she's distant. It doesn't depend on reassurance. This is what women feel first. Not your confidence, not your words, but your emotional gravity. A man without a frame reacts to her energy. A man with a frame sets the emotional temperature. And here's the key distinction. Setting the temperature does not mean controlling her. It means not being moved by every shift. When she's excited, you're present. When she's quiet, you're steady. When she's unsure, you don't scramble. You remain the same man. That consistency is rare, and rarity creates attraction. Stoicism teaches this through self-command, not suppression, not indifference. Self-command. You feel emotion, but you don't let it dictate behavior. You notice desire, but you don't let it rush decisions. You enjoy connection, but you don't anchor your identity to it. This is why Stoic men feel safe. Not because they promise stability, but because they embody it. Now understand something important. Women are not attracted to perfection. They're attracted to emotional reliability. A man who can feel without spilling, care without clinging, desire without desperation. That balance is the Stoic frame in action. When a woman is around a man like this, her nervous system relaxes. She doesn't feel pressure to perform. She doesn't feel responsible for his mood. She doesn't feel like one wrong move will trigger insecurity. That relief is powerful, because most men unconsciously ask women to regulate their emotions. They need reassurance. They need attention. They need confirmation. A Stoic man needs none of it. And paradoxically, that's what creates desire. Because desire doesn't form when someone leans on you. It forms when someone stands on their own. The Stoic frame also changes how a man moves through uncertainty. When things are unclear, he doesn't force clarity. He observes. When interest fluctuates, he doesn't compensate. He stays grounded. When a woman pulls back, he doesn't chase. He checks himself first. Not in self-blame, but in self-awareness. He asks, am I still acting from alignment? Am I still living my values? Am I still anchored in my purpose? If the answer is yes, he does nothing. And that nothing is not passivity. It's restraint. Restraint is one of the most misunderstood masculine traits. People confuse it with weakness, but restraint is strength under control. It's the ability to pause when reaction would be easier, to remain silent when explanation would be tempting, to walk away from outcomes that require you to abandon yourself. That restraint is felt, not logically, viscerally. A woman senses when a man could push but doesn't, when he could chase but won't, when he could demand but chooses composure. That choice creates polarity, because polarity needs difference, and the difference between a reactive man and a grounded man is night and day. Here's the truth most men never hear. Women don't fall in love with potential. They fall in love with presence. Not presence as availability, presence as grounded attention. A Stoic man is present when he's there. and complete when he's not. He doesn't linger emotionally. He doesn't hover mentally. And because of that, his presence carries weight. This is why Stoicism works in love without ever trying to. It doesn't chase connection. It creates conditions where connection feels natural. It doesn't force emotion. It allows emotion to arise safely. And most importantly, it protects the man from losing himself while attraction unfolds. In the next chapter, we'll talk about something critical. Why comfort, when introduced too early, kills attraction, and how Stoic men create emotional tension without manipulation, without games, and without pretending to be someone they're not. Most men think love grows from comfort, from safety, from reassurance, from consistency too early. That's where they lose her. Not because comfort is bad, but because timing is everything. Attraction doesn't ignite in comfort. It ignites in emotional tension. And before you misunderstand this, let's be clear. Emotional tension is not anxiety. It's not manipulation. It's not hot-cold games. It's unresolved emotional space, a gap between what she feels and what she can fully define. That gap pulls her in. The problem is, most men rush to close it. They explain too much. They reassure too fast. They confess too early. They remove the tension before it has time to work. A Stoic man does the opposite. He allows tension to exist without trying to control it, because he understands something fundamental. Attraction grows when emotion has room to move. Think about it. When everything is known, nothing is felt deeply. When everything is clear, nothing is chased. Mystery is not about hiding information. It's about not overexposing emotion. And emotional tension lives exactly there, between interest and certainty. A Stoic man doesn't rush certainty, not because he's unsure, but because he's self-contained. He doesn't need resolution to feel okay. That alone changes the dynamic. Most men want emotional clarity because they're uncomfortable with ambiguity. They want to know where they stand. They want guarantees. They want reassurance. So they push. They ask questions she hasn't answered yet. They label things before they're earned. They talk feelings into existence. And the moment they do, attraction drops. Not because women dislike honesty, but because honesty without grounding feels like pressure. A Stoic man is honest without being heavy, clear without being needy. He doesn't rush to define the connection because he's not trying to secure it. He's observing it. That observation creates tension, because she feels him moving forward without clinging to the outcome. And here's where it gets interesting. Women don't crave attention. They crave emotional engagement. And emotional engagement doesn't come from constant availability. It comes from contrast, presence, then space, connection, then stillness, interest, without emotional chasing. This contrast activates curiosity. She starts wondering, what is he thinking? Why isn't he pushing? Why does he feel calm even when things are unclear? Those questions create emotional motion, and emotion that moves becomes attachment. A Stoic man doesn't engineer this. He allows it, because he doesn't panic when there's silence. He doesn't rush to fill gaps. He doesn't fear pauses in communication. Silence doesn't threaten him. And silence, when paired with confidence, becomes tension. This is where most men sabotage themselves. They mistake silence for rejection, distance for danger, uncertainty for loss. So they react. They text more, explain more, invest harder. But reaction collapses tension. Stillness sustains it. Stoicism trains this stillness, not as a tactic, but as a mindset. The Stoic man understands that not every emotion needs expression. Not every thought needs a message. Not every feeling needs reassurance. He lets moments breathe, and in those moments, her imagination starts working. She fills the gaps herself, and whatever she fills them with feels more real than anything you could say. This is why emotional tension works. The brain attaches meaning to what it has to complete. Psychologically, unfinished emotional loops stay active longer. Emotionally, unanswered feelings deepen investment. A Stoic man intuitively understands this. So when she pulls back slightly, he doesn't chase. He checks himself. Am I still centered? Am I still aligned? If yes, he does nothing. That nothing creates contrast. It forces her to feel the difference between his presence and his absence. And absence, when earned, is powerful. Not because it hurts, but because it highlights value. This is also why Stoic men don't overshare. They don't unload emotions early. They don't narrate their inner world. Not because they're closed, but because depth is layered. They let emotional intimacy unfold instead of dumping it all at once. That pacing creates tension, because she feels closeness without total access. And partial access is intoxicating. Here's the line most men never learn. You don't create attraction by giving everything. You create attraction by allowing something to remain unfinished. The Stoic man leaves space, not empty space. Charged space, space filled with calm, direction, and presence. That space invites movement toward him, not because he asked for it, but because she feels pulled. And the more he remains unreactive, the stronger the pull becomes. This is the paradox. The man who is least afraid of losing her is the man she feels safest moving toward, because his emotional stability doesn't collapse under pressure. And emotional tension only works when the man holding it is not trying to control the outcome. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into mystery. Why mystery is not about secrecy. Why oversharing kills desire. And how Stoic men let women discover them instead of explaining themselves. After emotional tension, there is one thing that determines everything else. Not looks, not status, not words. Calm, but not the calm most men think. Not passive, calm. Not silent because you're afraid to speak. Not calm because you're emotionally numb. This is masculine calm, the kind of calm that stabilizes a room without saying a word. Most men believe women fall in love when they feel safe. That statement is incomplete. Women don't fall in love with safety alone. They fall in love with calm that can hold chaos. And that calm starts in the nervous system. A woman's nervous system is constantly scanning, not for danger, for emotional regulation. She feels before she thinks. And the fastest thing she feels in a man is whether his internal state is stable. This is why a man can say all the right things and still lose attraction. His body tells a different story. Tight jaw, restless movements, over-explaining, needing reassurance. Those are not personality traits. They are nervous system signals. And women read them instantly. Masculine calm is not something you perform. It's something you inhabit. It's what happens when your emotions don't spill outward the moment something feels uncertain. Most men confuse calm with silence. They think, if I don't talk, I look strong. That's not calm. That's suppression. Real calm doesn't avoid expression. It chooses timing. A stoic man speaks when it matters, and stays silent when silence carries more weight. Silence is powerful only when it's grounded. Otherwise, it feels awkward. Masculine calm comes from presence, not physical presence, emotional presence. Being fully where you are without trying to manage how she feels. Most men try to control the emotional atmosphere. They smooth things over. They lighten tension. They reassure preemptively. They think they're creating comfort. What they're actually doing is signaling emotional fragility. A man who needs everything to feel good cannot create safety. A man who can remain steady even when things feel undefined creates gravity. Calm beats chaos, not because chaos disappears, but because it loses control. Think about moments when she's emotional, upset, confused, overstimulated. If your energy spikes with hers, you amplify chaos. If your energy stays grounded, you become the anchor. And here's the paradox. She doesn't feel safe because you fix her emotions. She feels safe because you don't need to. Masculine calm communicates one thing above all else. I trust myself. That trust radiates. It tells her you're not fragile. You're not reactive. You're not dependent on emotional certainty. This is why presence matters more than words. A man who listens without interrupting, who doesn't rush to explain, who doesn't defend himself unnecessarily. That man feels solid. Even when he says very little, masculine calm is not distance. It's containment. You feel him there, even when he's quiet. This is also why Stoic men don't chase clarity. They don't demand emotional definitions. What are we? Where is this going? Do you still feel the same? Those questions don't create safety. They reveal anxiety. A calm man lets clarity emerge naturally because he's not afraid of outcomes. He knows that forcing emotional resolution kills organic attraction. Silence plays a role here, but silence is not avoidance. Silence is space. Space for her emotions to move. Space for her curiosity to activate. Space for her nervous system to settle. When a man doesn't rush her emotionally, her body relaxes. Not because she's bored, but because she feels unpressured. Pressure is the enemy of attraction. Calm removes pressure. This is why calm men feel rare. Most men are loud emotionally. They talk. They explain. They react. A calm man doesn't compete emotionally. He observes. And observation creates presence. Here's something most men don't realize. Women don't feel safe with men who are predictable. They feel safe with men who are consistent under stress. Predictability is routine. Consistency is character. Anyone can be calm when things go well. Masculine calm shows up when things are uncertain, when communication slows, when tension appears, when emotions fluctuate. If your energy stays level, her trust deepens, because her nervous system recognizes stability, and stability is attractive, not boring stability, centered stability, the kind that doesn't need validation. That calm also creates polarity, because while she may be emotionally fluid, you remain emotionally grounded, not disconnected, grounded. This polarity fuels desire, not through drama. Through contrast, she feels, you hold. That dynamic is ancient and deeply wired. Masculine calm is not taught in dating advice, because it can't be faked. It comes from inner alignment, from a life with direction, from values you live by, from emotional discipline. A Stoic man doesn't outsource his emotional state. He doesn't need her reactions to feel okay. That independence is felt immediately, and it's why she feels safe leaning into him. Not because he guarantees outcomes, but because he's solid regardless of them. In the next chapter, we go deeper into earned intimacy. Why vulnerability without timing destroys attraction. Why oversharing kills polarity. And how Stoic men let intimacy build only when it's deserved. Most men believe intimacy is created by opening up, talking more, sharing deeper, revealing wounds early. They think vulnerability builds connection. That belief has destroyed more attraction than rejection ever could. Because intimacy is not created by exposure. It is created by investment. And investment only matters when access is controlled. This is where most men lose the frame. They give emotional access too early to someone who has not yet earned it. They open the gates before the kingdom is even valued. Let's clarify something important. Vulnerability is not weakness, but misplaced vulnerability is. There is a timing to intimacy, and when timing is wrong, even truth becomes unattractive. A Stoic man understands this instinctively. He does not hide his inner world. He guards it, not out of fear, out of self-respect. Intimacy that is given freely has no gravity. Intimacy that is earned creates attachment. This is what most modern advice gets wrong. It tells men to be open without teaching them when. And timing is everything. Early oversharing feels honest to the man, but to her nervous system, it feels unsafe. Why? Because depth without structure signals instability. When a man reveals his emotional wounds too soon, he's not building trust. He's asking for regulation. He's saying, without words, hold this with me. That reverses polarity. She does not feel closer. She feels responsible. And responsibility kills desire. Earned intimacy works differently. It unfolds in layers. Each layer unlocked by mutual investment. not by emotional dumping. This is where investment bias comes in. People value what they invest in, not what is handed to them. When she invests emotionally first, attachment forms naturally. When you invest first, you create comfort without desire. A stoic man lets her lean in first, not because he's cold, but because he's centered. He listens. He responds calmly. He doesn't rush to reveal everything. That restraint creates curiosity. Curiosity creates tension. Tension creates attachment. This is the kingdom and gate metaphor. Your inner world is the kingdom. Your values, your fears, your past, your purpose. The gate determines who enters. Most men leave the gate wide open. Anyone can walk in. Anyone can see everything. That doesn't make them authentic. It makes them unprotected. A stoic man stands at the gate, not aggressive, not defensive, present. He does not deny entry. He observes, who invests time, who shows consistency, who respects boundaries. Access is earned through behavior, not through chemistry alone. This is why not oversharing matters. Oversharing collapses the gate. It turns depth into noise. It removes mystery before curiosity has time to grow. Mystery is not deception. Mystery is unrevealed depth. And depth feels attractive when it's discovered, not dumped. A man who reveals everything at once has nothing left to explore. A man who reveals himself gradually feels endless. Earned intimacy also protects you. When you give emotional access too early, you attach prematurely. You confuse closeness with commitment. Then, when she pulls away, you fall harder. A stoic man does not bond before alignment. He enjoys connection without losing himself in it. This is emotional discipline, not emotional distance. He feels, but he doesn't attach blindly, because attachment without investment is self-betrayal. Earned intimacy requires patience, and patience is rare. Most men want certainty quickly. They want reassurance. They want clarity. They want to feel chosen. So they overshare, hoping it accelerates bonding. It doesn't. It short-circuits it. Real bonding happens when both people feel they've earned access. When vulnerability is mutual, when effort is balanced, when emotional doors open slowly, that pace feels safe. Not boring, safe. Grounded, safe. This is also why stoic men don't trauma bond. They don't connect through pain. They connect through presence. They let vulnerability emerge after trust is established, not before. This creates a different dynamic. She feels him as solid, not fragile. She feels invited, not burdened. She feels drawn in, not overwhelmed. Earned intimacy also filters women. Those who rush emotional access often seek validation, not partnership. Those who respect pacing are capable of real connection. A stoic man does not chase intimacy. He allows it to form. And when it does, it's deeper than anything forced, because it's chosen, not rushed, not traded, not demanded. This is the kind of intimacy that makes a woman feel safe without killing desire. because she earned the keys. She didn't receive them out of generosity. She received them out of investment. And that changes everything. In the next chapter, we reach the core trigger, the one trait that overrides attraction, intimacy, and tension. The man who can walk away, not as a threat, not as a game, but as an inner state. There is one trait that overrides attraction, one inner state that dissolves fear, one position that no technique can fake. It's not confidence. It's not charisma. It's not dominance. It's this, the man who can walk away. Not dramatically, not angrily, not as a threat, but calmly, naturally, without emotional collapse. Most men misunderstand this completely. They think walking away means punishment, or manipulation, or playing hard to get. That's not power. That's insecurity in disguise. A Stoic man doesn't walk away to get a reaction. He walks away because he is not trapped, and that freedom is felt immediately. Here's the psychological truth most men never hear. A woman does not fall in love with effort. She falls in love with optionality. Not her options, yours. When a woman senses that a man needs her to feel whole, to feel validated, to feel chosen, her nervous system tightens, not because she dislikes him, but because dependence feels dangerous. But when she senses that a man enjoys her without needing her, something shifts. She feels relaxed. She feels curious. She feels pulled, because attraction requires freedom, and freedom only exists when walking away is possible. This is not about leaving. It's about not being stuck. A Stoic man doesn't threaten to leave. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't hint at it. He simply knows he will not abandon himself to keep someone else. That internal line creates gravity, because she knows she is choosing him, not rescuing him, not stabilizing him, not completing him. Choosing. That is where desire lives. Let's be clear. Walking away is not a tactic. It's a byproduct of internal freedom, self-respect, emotional independence, purpose beyond relationships. When these are real, walking away becomes effortless. And effortlessness is what women respond to. This is why threats don't work. The man who says, "If you do this, I'm leaving," has already lost, because he needs compliance to feel secure. A Stoic man doesn't negotiate his boundaries. He observes behavior, and if alignment disappears, he doesn't argue reality. He exits it, quietly. That calm exit does something powerful. It forces clarity. She can no longer control the frame through withdrawal, confusion, or mixed signals, because confusion only works when you are afraid to lose. The man who can walk away doesn't need certainty. He trusts himself. This is what women feel as strength, not aggression, not dominance. Stability under uncertainty. When a woman tests a man and sees panic, she loses respect. When she sees control, she leans in, not consciously, instinctively, because her nervous system relaxes around a man who is not attached to outcomes, Stoic detachment is often misunderstood. It's not coldness. It's non-attachment to results. A Stoic man still desires, still feels, still connects. But he does not cling. He does not beg reality to stay comfortable. He adapts. And adaptability is power. This is why the ability to walk away is the ultimate trigger, because it means you are not afraid of loneliness. You are not dependent on validation. You are not bargaining for affection. You are not shrinking to be chosen. That energy is rare, and rarity creates value. Most men chase love. Stoic men allow alignment. If alignment exists, they stay. If it doesn't, they leave. Without drama, without speeches, without resentment. That clarity feels clean, and clean energy is magnetic. This is also why women often return after a man walks away calmly. Not because he played a game, but because, for the first time, she felt the absence of pressure. She felt the space. She felt the contrast. She felt the loss of gravity. And gravity is only noticed when it's gone. But here's the most important part. A Stoic man doesn't walk away hoping she comes back. That would still be attachment. He walks away because staying would require self-betrayal. And that is the final test. Can you choose yourself without hatred, without fear, without needing to be right? If yes, you have crossed the threshold. Because the man who can walk away has already won. Not over her, over himself. In the final chapter, we lock this identity in, not as dating advice, but as a way of being. If there's one thing I want you to remember from this video, it's this. Women don't fall in love with men who chase love. They fall in love with men who are anchored in themselves. Not because he's distant, not because he's cold, but because he's whole. A Stoic man doesn't try to pull love toward him. He builds a life, a structure, a calm center that love naturally moves toward. He doesn't argue with uncertainty. He doesn't negotiate his worth. He doesn't panic when attention shifts. He stays present.